Look what I fixed.
Someday, Brad, we're gonna
No,
have.
hold on. Did you see it?
Oh, what happened?
I fixed
Was
the
it the little
titles.
banner things?
Yeah, like they're back.
I didn't even. Were they broken? Mine looks like it's a little lower than yours.
It might be. So, because the magic of XSplit is when I reloaded the profile, I don't know, a few weeks ago, like the layer stacking got screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were actually behind the
Oh,
video.
yeah, yeah.
So
Of
they've
course, yeah.
always been there. Just
They've
our,
always been there.
our big ugly
They're
mugs
just
were always in the way.
in some other plane of existence. People can see them.
Yeah, like if you looked at the video feed from the backside, you would have seen
Mm-hmm.
our name. I mean, they would have been backwards, but you. That,
I get it. I get it. Someday we should record our little pre-show things where Brad and I just kind of talk, and then
Denounce
at a later
society.
date, when it's acceptable, we can put those things out. I think people would find that more interesting than what we actually talk about.
Yeah, but then you got to be like, so as Paul will understand, probably other people understand, but like when we're doing the podcast, like you're on, like
I know.
the other, the before show stuff is like me sitting there going like, Paul.
No, but that's not really the point, right? Like,
No, I know.
it's not about our posture. Nobody wants to see us. It's not that. It's the content of the conversation.
Maybe.
I don't know. Some of it could never come out because
Yeah,
we're off.
like some of it my wife doesn't want to hear either.
Anywho,
A couple things have happened. You got a leather. Is this one leather?
yeah, I got to say, it's a Windows. I'm sorry, the what is it called? The HP Elite Folio, which I've described as the spiritual successor to what was called the Spectre Folio, right? Which is a computer that HP announced, I want to say 2.5 years ago. I remember the event very clearly, but I don't remember the timing very clearly. And that was that leather bound deal. And it's a convertible PC, but it has what HP calls, I think it's called a pull forward screen. So the way that it kind of, folds and transforms is different. The previous product was a Y series Intel processor, which honestly for a Y series processor was probably as good as it was ever going to get. It was, I believe, a variant of the processor that Apple used in the MacBook Air or something like that. It was fun. It was nice. The leather on the outside was kind of a pebbly, almost basketball-like surface, so it was kind of stiffer or harder. The new version now is, first of all, it goes into their business class line, so Elite versus Spectre. That's one thing. Same basic design, same basic build materials, meaning the underlying part is magnesium. Qualcomm chipset, right, instead of Intel, so we lose Thunderbolt. So we also lost a USB port. By the way, the USB ports are like 5 gigabits. I mean, it's like going back in time a little bit there. But the leather on the outside, instead of being kind of brown, pebbly basketball-like, is now black and is much smoother and is also not leather. It's a faux, what they call vegan leather, and it's one of those weird things that's like super pleasant to touch.
Mm-hmm.
So you find yourself just kind of holding it. You know what I mean? I don't mean to be weird, but it's like
No, I
it
get it.
feels, yeah, there are certain materials like they just, it's nice. It's like a nice. If I would have assumed it was leather. I mean, it's really nice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. I don't mean to beat this conversation to death, but where Qualcomm is with their Snapdragon processors for PCs is kind of stagnant. If you remember, a year and a half ago in that December, so that would have been 2019, they announced the 8CX, right, which was the 1st one that was custom designed for PCs. Didn't really raise the bar all that much, but it was certainly an improvement. Last, I want to say September 2020, ahead of their normal annual December event, they announced an 8CX Gen 2. And then when December came, they didn't announce anything. So we're in a weird holding pattern. So this computer, unfortunately, has that 8CX Gen 2 in it. There's no new true 2.0 chip, whatever you want to call it. Day to day, I've only had it for a day. I mean, I can't make huge sweeping statements about it, but I mean, obviously, like general performance, like productivity tasks using Explorer, et cetera, is all, yeah, it's fine. X64 is an issue. I looked into this yesterday. You can still only get that through the dev channel. The dev channel is not something I would put on a review laptop until I review it. And even I'd kind of like to see it more generally available. So that kind of screws things up a little bit. But I mean, other than that, it's under £3 as you would expect. It's got that kind of versatility. There's a built-in pen. Oh, I should say the the pen is one of those kind of is carpenter pen the right word? The kind of flatter, big
Yeah,
pen.
carpenter. Yeah,
Pencil,
carpenter.
carpenter
Yep.
pencil. Sorry. So it sits in a slot at the top of the keyboard, much like it does on Surface Pro X. And it's a similar pen, I think. I mean, I don't have Pro X, but it's similar. It's big, full size, really nice pen. There's also a SIM card slot in that well where the pen goes, which is actually kind of a neat way to do it. And it supports 5G, right, which is cool. But the other thing, I looked it up on I almost said Lenovo, HP.com, and this computer is like between $1,800 and $2,200. It's really expensive. Like, yeah, this thing, if this was like 1,000 to maybe 1,200, I think you could make an interesting case for it. As we always could for anything like Windows 10s or in this case Windows 10 on ARM. But at that price level, it's like, why? It's silent. Yeah. I mean, like if that matters to you, I suspect the battery life is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Claimed 24 plus hours on video playback, which is nonsense. But, ARM devices have typically gotten in the 20-hour range. So I don't know. It's one of those things like the form factor is, I should say too, they went to a 3x2 display. The previous version was 16:9. So that huge, like 1920 by 1280 display is, it's beautiful. There's a lot to like about it, but it's early days. It's expensive.
The only thing I'll point out, and you'll see why I do this in a second, is vegan leather, which is just a hilarious name. Brilliant marketing. Absolutely brilliant marketing.
Well, it's like the Wonder Burger of
it is.
World, I guess.
But the funny thing is that's what is in my car. Like the whole everything is vegan leather.
And it feels great, right?
Oh, like it's like
yeah.
when I was like vegan leather, like when I was like I'm going to spend this much money on a car, get vegan leather, and then
remember in the old days you get that really like just cheap crap in your car that was not was no way like leather.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this stuff is nice. Like when you said it's nice to touch, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like it's
weird. Like it's weird saying that, but it's the type of thing you kind of turn around in your hand a little bit because it's just
supple. I don't know how to describe it.
Like I don't want to be walking to a meeting exactly, but that would be a pleasant experience because I'd be holding it. It's weird. I know.
This meeting is going to suck, but my fingertips feel nice.
Exactly. I'm really pissed off, but my hands feel great.
Other things floating around the hood. More problems for Stadia. A bunch of their execs left and joined another former Stadia exec.
So I don't know if you saw this little bit. There's been a lot of stuff coming out in this Apple v. Epic trial. And one of the little tidbits is like they're being very careful to redact sensitive corporate information, which is not just Epic and Apple, but also any of the other companies that are kind of involved because they're testifying or whatever. They're trying to draw comparisons between different markets, et cetera, et cetera. Apparently there was some concern that this was something that was confidential and shouldn't be said out loud. But someone asked, I think it was Tim Sweeney rather, the CEO and founder of Epic Games, if Stadia was dead. And he said, yeah. And then they were like, oh, hold on. And it was like, hold on, we can't talk about this. And then they said, well, is it your understanding that, Stadia is dead? And he said, yeah. And it's like, so, and it's like, well, what is that based on? It's like, well, haven't there been reports about that? And it's like, they kind of looked around and they're like, no, there haven't been. Like, there have been reports about the problems, right? There was the Epic, Google killed its in-house game development stuff back in, I think, December, maybe. And then the stuff you just referenced, right? But there's been no actual story like, hey, Google just killed Stadia. And, for whatever it's worth, by the way, I just did this. Stop. Google just answered me. I just did this upstairs with the, actually with an HP laptop, not the ARM one, but another one. I tried xCloud and it was terrible, like terrible. I tried it with a wired controller. I tried it with wireless controller. It's just it's literally unplayable. And then I'm like, and I'm like, well, let me go to Stadia. Now I don't have like a paid Stadia account anymore, so I don't get like the free games you get through Stadia really, or I guess I might get some, but I had purchased that Doom game. And so I booted that thing up and it worked fine. like honestly, Stadia works fine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Stadia.
For all I know, but for all the shit talk about it, for whatever reason, I mean, honestly, it's good. And it's in a much better place right now than the xCloud thing is. We all believe in the future, blah, 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 whatever. But I mean, Just saying. So anyway, I don't actually think it's dead. I think this is a CEO being willfully clueless. It's like Tim Cook claimed he had never even heard of Tim Sweeney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, we get it. Up on Mount Olympus, you can't see below the clouds, but I think it's that kind of thing. Like just like I said, willfully ignorant.
Could be the name of us. The
Willfully,
willfully ignorant.
right, cluelessly ignorant.
So,
Yeah.
it's Thursday, which is good.
But we skipped over the biggest news.
What's that?
So Microsoft was.
Oh, right.
Right. So, and we had forgotten the name, or you had forgotten the name of this woman, and now I've forgotten her first name is Lori, but
Lori Wright.
Lori Wright, thank you. So she is a, what is she? Vice president of Xbox. Yeah. So she took the stand, and an Epic Games lawyer asked her, how much margin does Microsoft earn on the sale of Xbox consoles? And she says, we don't. We sell the consoles at a loss. And so you think that would be the end of that conversation, but he's like, just to be clear, has Microsoft ever earned a profit on the sale of an Xbox console? She said no, like not once. Now, that doesn't mean that Xbox hasn't been profitable from time to time overall as a business. And one of the things that did come out in the court documents is that Microsoft's Xbox software and services, I think it was, has been profitable from time to time. Like that has happened, right? And that makes sense, right? You've got two different sides of a business, really small, I would say negative margins on hardware, and then whatever the margins are in software and services. Obviously, software and services can be profitable. Hardware is not. In this case, we know. My contention, this is just my opinion because I feel like Microsoft would have mentioned this once if it had ever happened, is that the overall business has never been profitable because of the losses from hardware. And this business was focused, of course, on hardware for its entire existence, right? Now they're making this cloud services, which have much better margins, et cetera, et cetera. Point of this conversation, by the way, is that the Xbox market, the Xbox store, has a 30% cut, just like Apple's, right? But Apple makes, what are the margins on an iPhone?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I think they're over 40. I mean, they're incredible. They use those margins to subsidize their software and services. Apple's App Store makes incredible margins as well. So Apple charging the same fee to developers for that platform doesn't make sense, where it does totally make sense on a video game market. And I kind of came to this myself, but Apple subsidizes its App Store and other services with hardware sales, right? If you think about the Microsoft or the video game business, the attempt here, what Microsoft's trying to do is subsidize video game hardware sales with software and services, right? The razor blade model.
Yep.
But like I said, I don't believe they've ever been profitable overall. There are obviously quarters from here to there where Xbox could have been profitable. We've already written off the loss of that thing, and now we have the software services stuff, and yeah, that makes money. Of course it does. Or it probably does, I should say. Sometimes.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. I mean, because they always report overall revenue, which I think last quarter was about $3.5 billion. But you're right. They don't ever break out and they say the net income for gaming was.
Here's what I sort of remember, and I don't have the exact number. There have been reports about the cost that Microsoft incurred making various video game console generations. And I don't remember the exact numbers. But I did talk to Xbox in person about the 360 before it came out. And they told me at that time, they're like, yeah, we're going to lose money on this thing. We're going to sell it at a loss. But the hope is over time, over the lifetime of the generation, we can make up those losses with the software and services stuff, but also through the introduction of cost-reduced hardware versions like that over time. In the case of the Xbox 360, if I remember correctly, there were at least two major hardware revisions. Probably Xbox, was it 360S was that one? And then whatever the thin one they had at the end. But those still don't make money, right? But they make less of a loss.
Yeah, they narrow the gap.
They were really hoping that by the end of the lifetime, they would be able to create an Xbox 360 that made a profit. And my understanding is that never happened. But these things cost. I mean, the first Xbox or the Xbox 360, the numbers are somewhere between like 7 and 15 billion, just through like R&D and you're building prototypes and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of money to make up. And then there's a cost of business, just a day-to-day, so you've cited some number from the most recent thing that's revenues, like you said. I can assure you that whatever they spent making the Xbox Series X and S, wipe that and many future quarters completely out. I mean, whatever. But the question is, like, how much of a profit do they make over the cost of doing business, regardless of hardware?
Right.
And that's going to vary, from quarter to quarter. And they don't, they never tell us. But by the way, the fact that they've never told us, I think, is the biggest clue, other than the fact that it's like, hey, we've been operating this business for 8 years. We've never had a profit, but now we have one. Should we tell people about that? And they're like,
Yeah.
because when it doesn't happen the next quarter or the next year,
Right.
People remember it. So,
Yep. And that's why they're pushing Game Pass so hard, because that's where they're going to make the money.
oh my God, yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah, $15 a month with no hardware subsidy, right, becomes profit over time. I mean, there's, they have to scale up.
Well, it's even worse than that though. For people on consoles, they're really getting $25 a month when you bundle in gold.
That's right, which is, well, I mean, with Game Pass Ultimate, you get gold.
Do you? I can never remember.
You know,
So then maybe I'm wrong.
Each of the games with gold. If you
That's right. That makes more sense.
Well, but you could also be a guy who was paying. You'd maybe not understand that you're doing this. You could be getting Xbox Game Pass for console at, what is that, $10 a month probably, and you're still paying for gold. I mean, same price.
Yeah, so $15 a month. Yep, you're right. I just looked it up.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to say you were wrong, because
There we
that's more enjoyable.
That's fine.